You're allowed to go through it all the way and make it up to the last second before it's done and decide you don't want to do it anymore. You are allowed to experiment and play and have fun, because otherwise, what is the point?
Welcome to Permission Slips, a space for you to practice paying attention to your life with self-compassion and kindness, so you can discover the wholeness, purpose, and joy you were made for. I'm Jillian DeBritz, a life and leadership coach and a recovering perfectionist, learning alongside you how to give myself permission to be human. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend, today's guest, Karla Peters. Karla, thanks for coming.
Oh my gosh, hi. Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
Is it okay that I called you my friend? Because I feel like we're friends.
1,000%. We are friends. Yeah. If we lived in the same place, it'd be perfect.
We would hang out all the time, I think, and probably cause a little bit of trouble. I first met Karla through a friend of mine, I think it was Kristen Vanderlip, who was working with you to do some creative branding stuff. You were helping Kristen come up with some different assets for her brand, different elements like fonts and colors and vision. And that's what I thought I needed. I thought I needed like stuff to make my website look prettier and help Instagram be more consistent. But then I jumped into working with you and realized there was so much more to what you do than at that point branding, which I know you're not doing as much of now. But I just want to say, Karla, you have been a pivotal part of my creative journey, my business journey, and honestly, my confidence growing as a human who feels called to do meaningful work in the world. And so that's why I call you my friend.
Ugh, God, I'm just going to start crying. It's so good. I'm so glad that we have a chance to, we have worked together several times over the last 5 years or so. And it's, I remember when you said you were thinking about starting a podcast and how like we needed to like do graphics for that. And now you have me on your pod, and I can't handle the goodness
it's so
that
fun.
has happened for the Jillian DeBritz brand.
Well, and I feel like I'll read your official bio in a second, but I feel like your belief in me over and over and over has been what has helped catapult me to take the next step and to do the next thing. And it makes me almost teary now because like there are so many brave steps that I couldn't have taken without someone saying, yeah, do it. You should. Yeah, that dream in your heart, that's worth taking a risk for. That's worth investing in. And yeah, so for context, so people know, we worked together for what you call a tiny brand, which was like this kind of DIY branding package that I could afford, which I so appreciated. And in that process, Karla, you asked me a question that I can't stop thinking about still. 2 questions, actually. And I asked,
was it the one about
questions.
superhero? If your brand was a superhero? No. Okay.
If your brand, you have so many great questions, But it was like in the process of trying to figure out like, when even thinking about Jillian DeBritz branding was so foreign to me. I'm like, I don't want to be a brand. I'm like a person. But you were helping me like how would you describe what branding is at that point?
Oh, it's just making decisions and being clear about who you are, who you serve, the things that you want, how you want to show up.
Totally. Which you helped me rethink. Like, I'm not trying to sell myself. I'm just trying to be consistent in how I show up in the world, which is sort of an issue. But I remember you asking me the question, how do you want, like, what is your dream for how you want the world to be better? You exist. Like, what is your dreamiest dream? Those kind of 2 questions together is how I've interpreted it. What's your dreamiest dream for the world? Not just for your own business and the work you're doing, but for the world itself as a whole. Like, how do you hope the world would be different? And I remember saying some version of, I want women, people, specifically women at that point, to invite one another into greater and greater wholeness. And I remember like crying as I was saying those words out loud because no one had ever asked me that question. And you just made that space for that dream to come to life. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for trusting me with it. I feel like that's a leap of faith to choose somebody to ask you those questions. And you never quite know who's going to be the person in your life that might ask that. And it might be someone that you have to pay in order to ask the right questions. But but I feel like you came to me at the right time for both of us. Like, let's
Mm,
explore this tiny brand stuff. And then for you, it was, yeah, like just developing that foundation so you could do what you do now. And
yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah, totally. It really was foundational and continues to be. So let me pause here and tell people more about who you are so they know what we're talking about. And then we can jump into more of what you're doing in your journey because people need to know Karla Peters for real. Karla is a violinist, creative director, and the founder of the Inspired Foundry, which may be the best name for a business ever. That's my little aside. So the Inspired Foundry is a creative studio for brainstorming, building, and branding your inspired ideas. She's built 150 plus brands, toured internationally as a musician with her duo, The OK Factor. Highly recommend the OK Factor's music on Spotify. And she's guided hundreds of creatives toward their next evolution through branding, coaching, and honest conversations about what it really takes to bring ideas to life. She lives in Minnesota in a tiny 300 square foot apartment, once owned a 246-year-old violin, and is a wannabe cheesemonger who believes good bread and better questions can solve almost anything. Amen.
Yep.
Yes.
Agreed. I still agree with that.
I hope that we can have cheese and bread together sometime.
Listen, Jillian, we need to make it happen.
I know. Why haven't we met in person? I still.
I don't know. You're in Utah? No,
No, I'm in
Washington?
Washington State. I know that time zone makes it difficult to connect.
Yeah. Okay. We'll figure it out. I've always wanted to go to Pacific Northwest. So
Hey, come on
next
over.
on my list. Yeah.
So tell me about your journey, and you can go as far back as you want to in terms of the creative evolution of the Inspired Foundry and really the Karla Peters brand. Like, how did that even start? If you could go back to the genesis of this work that you're doing, what's
Yeah.
the story you would tell us?
Well, I would tell you it's all connected, as
Mm-hmm.
so many things are. I went to college for violin performance. I was a music major. I did a communication studies minor, and so I think I always had a little bit of that curiosity around marketing and technology and communications, literally, but it didn't really come to fruition until my duo partner and I sort of set out to make a career out of being musicians. And then we needed a website, and we needed a business card, and we needed all the stuff. At the time, I had a friend who I knew was in graphic design, and so we hired her for our first logo. But I loved the process of the iterations she would send and the tweaks we would ask for, and then seeing the final product come together, and then to see it on top of photography and then on packaging, like just the whole experience of understanding how all of that went together was really life-giving to me. So alongside the music, which is my first and forever creative love, I decided to start seeing if other people needed these kinds of things from a total peon, newbie designer. And then over time, just kind of started doing more and more of it. As you do, you practice, you get better, you raise your prices, you practice, you get better, you raise your prices. And I had gone through, I don't know, a couple different studio names and finally came up with the Inspired Foundry in 2020. So I launched the Inspired Foundry as it is now in the middle of the pandemic, which is a little nutty, but seemed to work out. All the businesses were moving online. Everything was online at the time. And so I felt like I was in the right place at the right time for that kind of work. Feel like the kind of the golden thread between like that point and where I am now has been like one of those last lines in my bio, like having honest conversations about what it takes to bring ideas to life. I think you and I probably talked a lot about like, what kind of microphone are you going to use for your podcast? Like in the future, like, I wanted to know those things. I wanted to ask those questions, not just to be your designer, but also kind of like get a little peek behind the scenes and help you figure out what exactly it was going to take. And so those kinds of conversations were happening, but they were adjacent to the brand design. And then in 2024, I got divorced. And it was kind of as big life changes are, kind of a turning point. I spent maybe another year kind of just in survival mode, trying to process all of that, moving into my new apartment, keeping whatever work I could get. And then I was at an entrepreneur fair where I was a vendor. I had a table, cute setup. I had worked really hard on my tablescape, and people would come to my table and they would ask about what I do. And I would tell them, well, I'm a brand designer, but I want to know about your dreams. Like, what are you really passionate about right now? What's exciting to you? And when I left there, I didn't have any new clients, but I did have this nagging feeling that I was on to something. I had brought these little I don't even have one close by, but these little tags that say like, here's an inspired idea on them. And I'd hung them on these like on a pegboard on my at my booth. And so people would take a card and they'd write their dream on it and then hang it on the what's word am I using? The wall? I don't know. It's like a pegboard.
Yeah, I can picture
Great.
it.
Okay. And I had this collection of them afterwards, and I'm like, this is the thing. Like, I want to know what people's dreams are. I want to know what lights them up and gets them super excited. I feel like you and I have that in common. We're so jazzed about the things that make other people jazzed, you know? And there's something about having the visual, like creative direction side that has made this kind of pivot really interesting. So that was 2025. I started talking about ideas, continuing to take on design work. But I started running artist residencies where I would call in 12 to 15 artists who wanted to work on one project over the course of 12 weeks. I've done 4 of those, a full cycle of seasons of those artist residencies now. And it's like, that's where I want to be. I want to be supporting creatives, entrepreneurs on the way to their next great, their next inspired idea.
It's so beautiful. I love how you named that it's all connected, right? There's a thread running through it all. And you were one of the first people to help me take the pressure off knowing today what my forever will be. Like, all I need to know is what I know today. All I need to know is what lights me up right now and the version of my dream that is clear enough to move toward, that's compelling enough to move toward. And I still don't know my 5-year plan, Karla.
Nobody does. Nobody does, Julia.
I mean, we pretend. We pretend.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've given me that permission to say what is stirring, what's sparking life and joy and passion and energy inside of me right now, and what can I move toward that stays congruent with my values and my wiring and even like my current season that I'm in. Like, what do I actually have the capacity for? You've taught me to ask some really great questions, which my actual job is to ask people great questions, Karla. Like, that's what a coach does.
I just had a conversation with someone about how I don't feel like my current branding fits me, but I don't know what to do about it. And I'm like, Karla, you're a brand designer. You can figure this out. And then I'm like, no, I want someone else to look at me and see me.
Yeah. You said that to me when we first started, the very first time I met you, and we were talking about a tiny brand, and I was kind of feeling a way about like having branding, and it just felt, I don't know, like self-absorbed or something.
You like to play in Canva. You had no problem like trying things out and
Sure. But I didn't know what I was doing and, all the things. I thought a brand was colors and fonts. And you were sort of making me uncomfortable in the best way of like trying to pull out and tease what was underneath who I am and what I wanted to do in the world so that it would be consistent, which what a novel idea that how I show up would actually communicate the message that I hope to share. But you said something about a glass jar, looking at it from the inside. Do you remember this?
You can only read the label you can't read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah. And that idea of like, we all need someone outside the jar to help see what's in there, to help see ourselves, our brand, our message, our work more clearly. And so I just love this unintentional little plug that you're giving us both for why we need sometimes to pay someone.
Yeah.
Whether it's a coach or a creative director or someone to help us see what's on the label of our jar.
100%.
Tell me about what you're doing now, because we just talked about the idea that you helped me map out most recently. And I love this label that you've given yourself as a creative cartographer, because this whole concept of idea mapping it's kind of mind-blowing to me. And I'll share a little bit about the idea that you helped me map that I'm actually doing right now. But can you talk about what that process is when you think of creative cartography?
Yes. It's 100% made up. I made it up.
It's beautiful. I love it.
I think of it like artistic project management. So it's a little bit of like what all is involved, who all is involved, what needs to happen, timeline, the general things that in a corporate world or a team setting you might see on a project management calendar. But the people I work with are just one person. They don't have a team. So how do you manage yourself and the things that you want to do and outsourcing if you need to? And so through the process of, music work and then becoming a brand designer and building these businesses and having a creative career as my livelihood, it has become abundantly clear what the process is for taking an idea from inspiration through execution and having it on the other side. It's just what I do. Like, it's just the way my brain works. And so when I decided that I wanted to start talking about ideas, I wanted some kind of like lovely framing for it. Like, how do we think about it's not just to-do lists or checklists or conversations. Like, we want a thing. I wanted like a thing that I could hold on to and a way that I could organize my notes about it. And so I came up with the idea of idea mapping, where we're literally creating a map on a piece of paper that's going to lay out all of what the idea involves. And so it usually starts with a long conversation about where you are right now in your life, what things look like, what are you hoping for, what are you dreaming about? And then we kind of, distill it down to the thing that you kind of want to work on in the next, we'll call it 30 to 90 days, 1 to 3 months. I have always been a big dreamer. I dream 5-10 years down the road. And I want those dreams now. And so part of those conversations are like, what are those big dreamy dreams? Can we take parts of them? Can we find a way to make them work right now? And I call that your minimum viable magic, the MVM. So thinking through, how can I build belief in this thing that feels so far off, but that I could actually accomplish in the next little bit of time? So then we move into architecture of the idea, which is basically branding. We're thinking about the inspiration behind it, the experience of it, the energy of it, how you want to feel inside of this idea, how you want other people to experience it, if it's something that you're going to sell. And then we go into infrastructure, which is what are all of the things that you need in order to make the architecture work? Do you need to outsource? Do you need software? Do you need a routine or a schedule or somebody to text you at 4:00 on Fridays to see how you did? Like what do you need in order to actually literally bring this to life? The last phase is momentum. And there we kind of, start to parse out into do's and tasks and things like that. But it's really about like, what are the things that are going to energize this? Do you need to launch? Because that's a whole other idea. Do you need to go somewhere to make this how do we kind of like get started? And then there are a couple other pieces, like we'll talk emotional landscapes. If we're using the map metaphor, we're thinking about what it looks like for you to bring this idea to life and not this other person. What does it mean for you? What does your life look like right now? What are your commitments and obligations? What's your capacity like? What's your energy like? And then there's identifying kind of the high level vision of the idea, which is different than the idea itself. It's after we've talked through everything. And I think this is where it's a slightly different than project management, because I think project management, you set the vision at the top, everything else follows it. I set the vision after we've talked everything through, because I don't think we always know what it is that we're doing until we've really parsed it out.
I agree.
Yeah. And then we identify some strategies to help you get from, I wish I could show it to you. It's kind of like architecture, infrastructure on the sides, momentum on the bottom, high level vision up here. And then it comes down into the mid-level strategies to help you get through momentum, but not stay stuck in the weeds so you can get back to the vision. It's a whole.
I actually just pulled my map. I'm wishing that I had it printed out in front of me. I just put it in my file cabinet.
Oh, nice.
Because I just finished my second session of the idea that you helped me map out, which is a mastermind group called the Made for More Mastermind. And so I literally pulled up, every time I get ready for this group, I pull out my idea map and I'm like, okay, what are the things I need to remember? And I especially appreciate that you ask the questions about the emotional landscape. Like, what's the reality of my emotional state right now? Like, how, as I bring this idea to life in the reality of my actual everyday life today, this season, what's my emotional capacity? What version of this, the minimum viable, what was it? Minimum viable magic. Yeah. Like, in order to make this happen, what's realistic and the minimum amount that I can put forward in order to feel good about how this idea is playing itself out? And the reality is, my capacity right now is itty bitty. And you were like, okay, Jillian, what are you going to do to keep this simple? What are you going to do so that you don't burn out? Because you said you wanted this to be a sustainable practice. This is something that you want to be able to offer over the long haul, that you want to be able to stay in it. And so what's that going to take? So you're asking me really great questions that weren't like these pie in the sky idea dream. Like, you let me dream. You let me have all my energy and passion bubble up. But then you have helped ground it in the reality of my actual life, which I love so much. Yeah. I'm thinking about how I had this idea and I thought I had it all mapped out in my mind. Like, it made sense. It logistically worked. But then you and I had a one-on-one. Like, we did a Voxer day together.
Yeah.
So people that don't know Voxer, it's like a walkie-talkie app where, similar to a Marco Polo or another communication app, you can go back and forth. But there's no video. And so you would listen to me talk about my idea and then give me feedback and ask me more questions. And so it was a back and forth all day, which I think you're still doing that one-on-one
Oh, yeah.
Voxer option, right? Yeah.
So fun. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so helpful to kind of talk through it with someone who was invested with me. And I realized how much I hadn't thought about that I thought I knew about this idea. I know I want to meet with women who feel like they're made for more and they can't quite identify what it is. I know I want to be their cheerleader. I want to be their champion. I want to create community that allows them to feel seen and less alone in the journey, that we all get discouraged in any hard thing we're doing. And I want to create a community where it's safe, where we can pray for each other, encourage one another, and speak life into one another about what we see in each other. And I'm like, yeah, easy, go. And you're like, okay, well, how about what practical work are you going to need to do? What's the back end setup you need to do? And you were asking me all these questions that I wouldn't think about without you, which makes me think of what you do so beautifully and what you've taught me so much about in the creative process is that collaboration makes us better. Yeah. And I know that you've experienced that in your music work, but I don't know. Can you talk about collaboration and what you've experienced, why you value it so much, both in the artist residencies and as a musician?
I used to think I was a lone wolf. I used to think I could do it all alone and that my ideas were the best and that nothing was ever wrong with them. And I used to be like a real egotistical kind of gal. I just, out of my 20s, I was a hotshot violin player. Like, I got it all figured out. And then you bring someone else into the picture and you have to learn how to share your ideas. And the beginnings of our music duo were messy, I would say. It was discovering that we were not the same, and that we had to unlearn that was a bad thing. It's actually a really, really, really good thing because she has strengths that I don't have, and hopefully vice versa. 13, 14 years into this, we now know our roles in the business side of things. She does the booking and the admin, and I do the social media and the marketing and content creation. And it has been trial and error, which I think is just the name of the game. It has been patience and flexibility and a lot of communication. I don't experience that in the same way in my own business with the Inspired Foundry, but I'm starting to understand that I've made my job to be your collaborator, to be the person who steps in and helps you get outside of your head and think about things in a slightly different way to make it better, right? Not because I think that my ideas are the best, but because I know the power of talking through something and the sparks of inspiration that can come or not. It just depends on so many things. But it's such a beautiful way to go about life. And I've experienced it in professional sense. I've experienced it in a personal sense. I think about when I got divorced and I had my two best friends right by my side for at least 6 months, just right there, always right there. I don't know how I would have done that alone. And it kind of makes me think about AI and how we've brought a tool into our worlds. And how at the beginning, at least for me, it was this really fascinating, oh my gosh, how have we not had this for years? And now that we've kind of mellowed out that high, we're all kind of wait, what are we doing with this? And not that we need to have a conversation about AI, but I feel like the best way that I've found to use it is as a collaborator, is to ask it to look at my stuff that I've written first and tell me where, it could use a polish or not. And sometimes it says dumb things and I'm like, cool, just toss it out the window.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a replacement and probably will never be a replacement for what human brains can do. I think I put it on my website too. I was brainstorming and then something else in a way that only humans can. Because I wanted it to be clear that when we're working together, I'm not using AI. I'm not coding over here. I'm not, it's you and me. And I feel that is what makes something magical.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I even just think on a very neurobiological level, which people hear me talk about, I nerd out on neurobiology all the time, for us to have eye contact and share mirror neurons where I can see in your face through your eyes when something sparks,
Mhm.
when it
Mhm.
resonates with you, or when you have just a felt sense of emotional connection with whatever I'm sharing, or there's a question or confusion. It's more than just information that I'm looking for in
Mhm.
collaboration. I'm not just looking for a neutral party to give me feedback and not hurt my feelings, which
Yeah.
often I find AI is great. AI is great, and I haven't maxed out the ways that it
Yeah.
can be a
Yeah.
beneficial tool. But there is no replacement for a person who can look you in the eye, see your vulnerability, honor that vulnerability, and say, this is worth going for.
Mhm.
You're doing a good job. Or even like, this might not be the idea, but your work still matters. Keep going. Don't
Mhm.
quit. And for that human person to do what you said earlier, which is to help build belief in a thing. You asked that question, like, how do I build belief in this idea, this thing that is stirring inside of me, this dream that's kind of sparking, that feels like almost too vulnerable to say out loud? Like,
Mm.
how do I build belief in that? AI can't do that. We can't trust AI with that sort of intuition that another person can offer you. So I know a lot of people listening wouldn't necessarily consider themselves creatives
Mm.
or entrepreneurs even, let alone
Mhm.
creative entrepreneurs. But I think we all have places where we want to try something new and it feels risky, or we all have dreams, whether we
Mhm.
admit we do or not, or we give ourselves space to dream those dreams or talk
Mhm.
about them, think about them or not. So I'm wondering if you have any advice or thoughts for people who don't know how to dream, don't know how to give themselves space or permission to dream, but kind of want to play with this idea of building belief
Mm.
in something that's sort of simmering below the surface. Like, how could someone start the process of building that belief?
Yeah. I feel like the best way to begin is a free write. Like
Mm,
piece of paper and a pen, or if typing is more your thing, open up a document and just start talking to yourself. I have like the most random things have come out of, you could call it journaling if you want, or you can call it a brain dump or whatever, but out of those sessions, I understand myself more clearly. I understand the things that I want,
mhm,
and my direction feels more clear because I took time to understand myself before I brought anybody else in on the idea.
mhm,
I think there's something to be said for blue sky brainstorming, like
hmm,
sky's the limit, meaning there is no limit. I love kind of a contrasting brainstorm. So, like, let's say, for example, that you had an idea to work out more, like as a personal goal. Okay, like, what's the biggest version of that? It's like bodybuilding competitions, Miss America pageants, like, I don't know, like, what's the biggest, loftiest, most visible version of that idea? And then what's the tiniest version? Like
hmm,
chair march steps, like sitting in a chair and like doing some kind of exercise, like
sure.
tiny, 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 tiny version. And then along kind of that pathway, where can you find a version that fits where you are right now and what you
Yeah.
want? I feel like that is an excellent tool. I usually call that the MVM finder. It's your
Hmm.
minimum viable magic finder. Understanding kind of, if you like creative prompts, like what fits in a cathedral, what requires, you to build a building that's 30,000 feet tall. Like what are you looking at from up that high, or what would
Hmm.
take up that much space? And then what's the version that, fits in the palm of your hand?
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I love that even as a spectrum of like, okay,
Hmm.
here's the dream, and here's on one end is this extreme, and on the other end is this extreme. But where are you ready to be right now?
Yeah.
Like, where on that, and where would you want to end up? Because maybe you don't want to be a bodybuilder, but your goal is actually to run a triathlon.
Yeah.
And even in that, like, where are you today, and where
Hmm.
can you start? I love
Hmm.
that. You have the best prompts of anyone I've ever met. You've seriously taught me to ask such better questions and to dream more creatively, which,
Mm.
hello, I think there's something really beautiful and inspiring about inviting our creativity into our planning and into our lives. We
Yeah.
talked about how this is different than project management, which
Hmm.
feels very linear to me and
Totally.
left brain focused. But I love the way you invite your right creative brain to inspire and connect with the emotion underneath the
Hmm.
surface that really feeds momentum and feeds motivation.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about some of the prompts, and I don't know if off the top of your head you can give us some of the questions that you asked, but I'm thinking about when we did our very first brand intake, there were
Hmm.
questions like, If your brand were to go shopping, where would they go?
Mhm.
If your brand had a I still have my brand playlist. If your brand
Yeah.
had a Spotify playlist, what music would be on it? And I actually made a playlist that I thought represented kind of the vibe I wanted. Can you
Mhm.
think of other maybe clarifying questions, whether it's about branding or ideas that might be helpful
Yeah.
for people?
Yeah, I mean, I love the superhero question too that we touched on earlier. If your brand was a superhero, what would their superpower be? Or like another way to think about it is what are you saving people from?
Mm,
And then you could, go down a rabbit hole like what are they wearing? If you want to think about fashion as a way to kind of a hole into your brand world. Restaurants or like interior spaces,
mhm.
those are always if your brand was a coffee shop, what would it be? Yeah.
Well, and I just love the clarity that it brings to help, especially again for entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, to think about who they're trying to serve. Like when you
Mhm.
think about your brand and you start to imagine some of these, like where would they hang out? Where would they shop? What would they be wearing? You're really honing in on your ideal client or the audience that
Totally.
you're really trying to serve and support with the work that
Mhm.
you're doing in the world.
Yeah.
I'm curious about people who maybe want to start a business or want to write a book or start a
Mm.
podcast or I don't know, what are some of the other things that people want to do in your artist residency program?
Oh, people have done email marketing. They've put together systems for their back end of the business, book proposals,
Yeah,
membership programs. I mean, all sorts of kinds of things. Yeah.
all sorts of things they want to create in the world. And I'm guessing that there are things that get in the way, barriers that keep them from taking those steps or even that they had to push through to get to the point where they're like, I want to join this artist in residency program. I want to join
Mhm.
another group of creatives. I'm going to invest money and time into a program with someone who can help me make progress. But what are some of the biggest reasons that you have found that people don't believe in their dreams
Mm.
and not even their dreams, but maybe even the deeper issues they don't believe in themselves,
Mhm.
um, to
Mhm.
go forward with whatever it is that's stirring inside of them?
Yeah. The people I work with are really busy. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's always a sense of overwhelm, not knowing the next right step
Mm-hmm.
and being too afraid to take it because they've taken steps before and it's led down a path of not finishing something. There's a lot of fear. Imposter syndrome's a big one, just not feeling like they have what it takes or why me. I would also say there have been a handful of cases where the idea they come in with is not actually the idea that they needed in that season. And so sometimes that like feeling of I want to do this, but I'm not moving forward on it isn't a problem you're having. It's that the idea might not actually be the right size or shape or
Hmm.
form.
Hmm.
And so those are interesting ones to work on because we have to have, deep conversation about, well, where are you in your season of life and what have you been working on and what has been working and what doesn't feel like it's working. And there's just a lot of like talking around the idea before we get into like what it actually
Hmm.
is. And so I think that can be intimidating, like, well, this is what I said I wanted to do, so why am I not doing it and I'm doing this other thing instead? But often that thing will lead you back to the thing that you wanted to do originally.
Hmm. I love that. And the freedom that comes again from the next right step and
Mhm.
following the
Yeah.
threads of passion and the dreaming that's been consistent over time, but also paying attention to your current season and capacity. Um, I'm thinking as you say that about like I've talked before on the podcast about the book proposal that I
Mm,
think I was writing or working on when we started working together. And, I really wanted to write a book and I thought that was my creative thing that
mm,
I was supposed to do. And I did the work and wrote the book proposal and sent it to agents and got a lot of rejections. And then for whatever reason, I felt like I couldn't even explain it, but I needed to start a podcast. And it was like this growing, burning, like desire and excitement in me that I couldn't ignore.
mm,
And so I set the proposal aside and I said, this is the thing. This is the thing I need to do. And I still find myself in this space where I'm like, this podcast is bringing me so much life. And I still think it's connected to a book at some point, but I haven't honed in on that thing. And so to hear you say, yeah, sometimes it's just the right idea at the wrong time or
mm, mhm,
like the wrong shape or the wrong
mhm,
form.
mhm.
And I think, okay, I'm still getting the message out. Like I'm still having conversations that are
Yeah.
meaningful and
Yeah.
helping people practice gentleness toward themselves. And it's really life giving. And even this reality that I love conversation and out loud thinking,
Mhm.
even more than I love by myself with my fingers typing, writing, thinking.
Yeah.
And
Same.
I love both.
Yeah.
But like, there's something so life-giving about this. And so I don't know, as you're sharing that, I'm receiving that encouragement for myself that it's okay to be where I'm at.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Well, you followed your own cues. I mean, like, I remember you starting to say something about the podcast, and it was like this, like you said, this is it. This is the thing that I really want
Hmm.
to do. And
Hmm.
I was like, damn, she's focused. Like
Hmm.
she is ready for it.
Hmm.
I think there's pressure to do things a certain way or to do things the way that other people have done them, or to assume that just because your idea looks different means you shouldn't do it because it's not like what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And I would challenge that wholeheartedly and encourage looking at the fact that whatever is on your heart, whatever you feel called to do is there for a reason. And even though it might not look like a podcast or a book, it might be something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a fun idea that doesn't look normal. Candlesticks for dogs. I don't know, like just
Love it.
because it feels weird to other people doesn't mean that there's not a version that you can't do right now.
Just
Jillian?
start. There's your cue. If that's your dream, listener, if your dream is candlesticks for dogs, consider this your sign. Take the step. And what I hear you saying is like, that's what you think the dream is now. But as you take the step, it's going to get clearer and clearer and clearer. And you're going to
Mhm.
discover
Mhm.
the version of the dream that it was actually supposed to be all along.
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
experience is you will never find the final iteration, the truest, most beautiful, most life-giving version until you start
Yeah.
taking a step forward.
100%.
Yeah. So if there are people who want to nurture their creativity, who want to nurture the space for dreaming, and you named it, like we're all so busy. We
Mhm.
all wrestle with imposter syndrome or self-doubt or whatever it is. You mentioned already this idea of brain dumping, journaling, writing things out. Do
Mhm.
you have any other practical advice for how we might make space to nurture our creativity and our dreams, or our
Mhm.
ideas in the midst of our busy, full lives?
Yeah. There's lots of different things that come to mind. I think the one that I see the most often is needing to put it on a calendar. So
Mm,
like you find an hour once a week or once a month or like whatever feels doable for you, and that is the time to explore something or to research something or to use Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, like artist dates. Take yourself on a date.
mhm,
I feel like we often have excuses that sound like I don't have time for this when the reality is you just haven't prioritized it. And so
mm,
it just needs to go on the calendar. That's the biggest one. I think I have, like, in the spirit of collaboration, there are so many people who are doing really interesting creative things like writing circles and knitting circles and like lots of circles happening that, you find one and you enjoy it. I actually, this winter, in Minneapolis, there's Minneapolis Public Schools and like adult education. And I took an origami class and I took a focaccia class
what?
and I took a banjo class. Like, I
How
don't know. I just wanted
fun.
to do something different, kind
Yeah.
of outside my wheelhouse. And doing things that you're terrible at is a really great way to like either start to feel better about the things that you are good at and or give you encouragement to try the thing that you really want to that you haven't started yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I even hear in that this invitation to pay attention to what sparks joy, what sounds fun.
Mhm.
Like creativity should be fun. And we don't have to pursue dreams because they make sense or they're practical, but there is something to joy. There's
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
inspiration and paying attention to that, not talking ourselves out of it because it doesn't make sense because who needs
Yeah.
candlesticks for dogs? but, but paying attention to that longing and making space for things that fan the sparks to flame in our
Mhm.
own lives
Mhm.
of our creativity and our unique dreams that only we are going to bring to the world. Can I ask you, do you ever want to quit? And what do you do when,
Mhm.
not if, when
Mhm.
those days come that you want to give it all up because it's so hard to be creative in the world?
Yeah. Yes. I want to quit weekly,
Hmm.
sometimes daily, at least once a month.
Mm-hmm.
And right around this time every year, I start to look for jobs
Mm.
because, like, post tax season and a slow winter equals very little income.
Yep.
Summer, like, but the problem is I travel in the summer. Like, I'm going to be
Yeah.
gone in Sweden for 2 weeks and then in Ireland for 3 weeks, and I can't take on a
Yeah.
job. So I have
Yeah.
to make it work.
Yeah.
And the only way I've ever been able to make it work is to back myself into a corner and like force myself to do it. And I'm really done with that way of operating. I just
Mm.
don't quite know how to get out of the corner,
Man, you're making me feel so normal.
This is like, I don't know a single person who doesn't also feel this way often, especially right now. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but building a business has never been this hard in the history of building businesses. Like,
it is so hard.
yeah,
It's so hard. And especially as a solopreneur, right? Where you're doing it all and
yeah,
no one has all the skills. You're not supposed to. And so we were just talking off camera about the loneliness of paving the way by
hmm
yourself
hmm
and leading other people and encouraging other people. But we don't always get that support or encouragement for ourselves. And so just to hear you say, I want to quit all the time is like, oh, it's not just me.
it's not just
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It is so hard. So what
it's
keeps
so
you
hard.
going on the days that you want to quit?
Talking to people like you,
Hmm.
having conversations with humans
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that it sucks
Yeah.
sometimes. Sometimes it's mind-blowingly
So
amazing,
great.
right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, you said something that I have never tried, but I'm going to now. You said just quit for the day and then try
Hmm.
again tomorrow. And I'm like, I have never allowed myself to quit once. We
Hmm.
don't quit. We
Hmm.
just work harder. Or I
Wow.
numb out and I disassociate, It's like one of the two extremes. So I feel like I would like to allow myself to quit and just like let that be a mindset for the next 7 hours and then get up and ask myself the question, do I want to keep going? And the answer I know is going to be yes.
Yeah.
Um, my mom used to do this to me all the time as a kid. I didn't want to practice, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to play video games with my friends. We would be in the
Really.
car and I would be like, I don't want to have to go to my lesson. I just want to be a normal kid. And she's like,
Hmm.
we can quit at any time.
Hmm.
And I don't know that she entirely meant it like, it's okay to feel the way that you feel. I think she more so meant it like, I know that you get benefits out of doing this work and you like it. And so if you quit, you don't get that anymore. Like
Hmm.
it felt subtly manipulative now that I look
Totally.
back on it. I'm also not a
Sure.
parent, so I don't know.
But it
But
worked.
it worked, yes. And I think now I need to be able to say, no, I quit
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
change my mind. Yeah.
To give yourself permission to say, yeah, I could quit at any
hmm
time. I
hmm
could just give this all up. I could, like, I don't have to stay here. I'm not stuck.
Yeah.
I have a choice. Like, there is
hmm
something really important about that that takes
hmm
the pressure off. Like, no, I'm choosing this. I
hmm
choose to stay. I don't have to stay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for being honest.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's the only way to get through.
Totally.
hmm
Yeah. If people are looking for support or help, I'm thinking about how my best creative practice and the thing that has most nurtured my own creative life has been community and finding,
hmm
like you said, whether it's a writing circle, knitting circle, mastermind group, coaching group, whatever it is, that has been the biggest difference maker for me is to have people in my life that are cheering me on. So if
hmm
people want you to cheer them on in their creative work, Karla, they would be so brilliant to take that step. But how could they connect with you? What are the things that you're offering right now?
Yeah. I offer a few different things. Every season, I run a cohort of artists in what I call this summer. It'll be the summer artist residency. And so we all pick one idea to bring to life over the course of 3 months. And it's playful and there's lots of reflection and conversation around the process of the thing. And you're in a room with people who are doing completely different things than you are. And so there's lots of inspiration to be gained. I've loved that. That'll start in July. I also run a membership called The Studio. The
Mhm.
studio at the Inspired Foundry, and it's basically a virtual co-working space. But my idea mapping stuff is all in there. I host twice weekly co-working sessions and then monthly like workshops or conversations around a certain topic. I write essays and sometimes I'll do podcast episodes in there just as I feel inspired.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my playground for all the idea mapping stuff. And then I also offer one-on-one idea mapping sessions. And each one of those, they're 3 hours because we need a good chunk of time, but then they come
Mhm.
with 30 days of accountability. So I'll be with you for check-ins for the process of at least getting it started, if not
Yeah.
bringing it to life.
I love that. So where could people find you if they want to get more information about any of those ideas?
Yeah, I would find me on Instagram. That's the best place
Okay.
right now, at the Inspired Foundry.
Perfect.
You could poke around on my website, but it needs a redo. So
don't we all, Karla? So I'll make sure to link your Instagram handle in the show
that's
notes
great.
too.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, is there a permission slip that you would want to give the people listening?
There's so many, Jillian. I would say you are allowed to build your idea exactly as you see it in your head. You are allowed to build it that way. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to start building it and hate it and start over. You're allowed to go through it all the way and make it up to the last second before it's done and decide you don't want to do it anymore. You are allowed to experiment and play and have fun, because otherwise, what is the point?
What is the point?
Yeah.
I'm receiving that permission for myself right now, Karla. In my work and business and creative life, I am receiving that, and so grateful for those words.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world that continues to inspire me to do good, creative, fun, life-giving work in the world too. I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, grateful for you, Jillian. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Permission Slips. I hope this conversation gave you permission to think about the dreams that have been stirring in your heart and to consider what it would look like for you to make space to fan your creative sparks into flame. And if you're looking for someone to support you in your creative journey, check out Karla's info in the show notes. Or you can also reach out to talk about coaching. I have a couple spots available for one-on-one coaching right now. Or if you're interested in the Made for More Mastermind, if you're a woman who thinks, there's something stirring inside of me, there's more that I'm made to do, and you want to consider what God may have in mind for you, the purpose that's bigger than you could create for yourself, check out the link in the show notes to sign up for the wait list for the next time the Made for More Mastermind opens up. Remember, your life matters, and so do your creative dreams, more than you know.